3 years ago, I predicted the Democrats would lose the 24 election. I also predicted that they would lose the midterms. I was correct on both accounts. I made this prediction based on the fiasco of Build Back Better. After we had a decent-sized movement from the left fighting for Medicare for all, we had opportunists like Jimmy Dore going out there doing his photo ops. Build Back Better came, and we heard barely a peep from the left. I think I saw maybe a dozen people that went out and actually protested and fought for the bill that had a lot of things that the left claims to care about. This was an opportunity. It was a fork in the road, a massive opportunity for the left to make some significant progress forward with the things that they claim to care about. And yet we got silence. And there were so many other things that happened with Build Back Better that I covered back then, such as the whole thing was fraud. This channel is nonpartisan, and I'm a radical independent. This channel is basically a charity. I call out both sides, so this channel will always be small. So I need all the support I can get. Click on the like button. Subscribe if you want an objective source. Please do not if you are a partisan and tribalist, because you're probably not going to like this channel. And you're only going to stick around until I criticize your side. There's tons of propaganda channels you can subscribe to if that's what you want. But that ain't this. Click the like. The whole fake negotiations, the whole Joe Manchin from the get-go telling them, what his demands were, the Democrats pretending not to be aware of this, Joe Manchin collaborating in the scam by not exposing this fact. I mean, just think, this is something I brought up years ago back then. If Joe Manchin sent them a letter ahead of time with all the details of what he was looking for, and the Democrats were going around saying that Joe Manchin wasn't being clear on what he wants, if they were not coordinating, why wouldn't Joe Manchin expose the Democrats and be like, hey man, that's not true. I sent them a letter, blah. But no, this was kept secret. The media kept reporting, this and that, and they're negotiating this and back and forth. And then, surprisingly, at the end of negotiation, they end up at the number that Joe Manchin had said in private in the very beginning. The whole thing was a scam. And the reason that bill was able to get watered down is there was no major support for it. There weren't thousands of people in the streets saying, we want to build back better. We want these things. The left sat by and allowed this major opportunity. And at that moment, I said, we are looking at 8 years or more of potentially going backwards. I kept saying that. We're going to go backwards for 8 years. Here we are. Trump has won. He's dismantling our government. They're doing this Doge scam nonsense. A lot of the progress that the left has been able to make, a lot of that is being pulled away. Well, I am prepared to make this is not a new prediction. I am revisiting an old prediction because now's the time to see if it's actually going to come to pass or not. Years ago, I had established a pattern of the American left. And what I saw was when the Democrats are out of power, all of a sudden the left gets animated and they want to go and hit the streets and protest. And then when the Democrats win, right? Whether it's Joe Biden or whatever Democrat it is, all of a sudden, where'd the protests go? Where's the movement? Where's the energy? And the thing about it is the left, when I say the left, I'm more talking about more progressives and people that are more on the radical side. They don't like the Democrats. They think the Democrats are inadequate. But yet, when the Democrats win, I don't see a major movement. I don't see them fighting the Democrats to make them deliver more, right? So Democrat wins, the left goes to sleep for 4 years. And then if a Republican gets in office, all of a sudden, no justice, no peace, no justice, no peace. And then they'll do all that protesting and whatever. And then if at the end of all that protesting, they're able to put another Democrat back in office, then it's hibernation mode for another 4 years. That Democrat gets to do just the bare minimum because the Democrats are going to do only what they need to do. If they are in office doing the bare minimum, and the people are just sitting by they might be mumbling, they might go on Twitter and say, well, Democrats need to do more, whatever, but it's not a real energy, then they're going to be like, okay, well, that we're good then, right? The Democrats are going to set their agenda based on what they feel they need to do, with one exception, unfortunately, maybe two exceptions, defense spending and Israel. But on everything else, they will respond to massive amounts of public pressure. The problem is, when the Democrats are in office, when the Democrats have the power to change things, that is when the left goes to sleep, right? You might see the right wing complaining and whatever, but the left is sleeping, right? That allows Democrats to skate by, do the bare minimum, and that bare minimum leaves a lot of people suffering, a lot of people angry, and that anger gets monopolized by the Republican Party, who's able to come into office with even a buffoon like Donald Trump. And then Donald Trump comes in office, and all of a sudden, there's a left again. No justice, peace. So here we are. We just came off of Democrats being in office. I don't remember I'm not saying there wasn't any protesting or any public pressure, but it certainly wasn't anywhere near the level where it needs to be. The Democrats surely felt comfortable just skating by, not trying to dismiss the accomplishments that Joe Biden did, some significant accomplishments. The anti-liberal propagandists would never admit that. They would pretend as if Joe Biden did nothing. Joe Biden did a lot. But for those of us that live in objective reality, we can both recognize that Joe Biden did a lot of good things, right? We can also recognize that a lot that he did was grossly inadequate. It's like, I'm about to lose my house and you do a lot for me by giving me 90% of all the money that you have, right? That's a lot to give me 90% of all the money you have. It's a lot in terms of percentage of your money. It's a lot in terms of to give that kind of sacrifice to help somebody else. That's a lot. But if I owe $19,000 and 80% of all the money you have is $50, right? Grossly inadequate. I mean, thank you. I'm not to dismiss. I mean, that's really commendable, but ain't really meeting me where I need to be, right? Joe Biden did a lot, but $50 that he gave to the American people clearly wasn't enough. And I do recognize that he didn't get as much credit for the little that he did do. And I say it's contradictory, right? Little or a lot. It's a lot relative to what's been done in the past. It's a little relative to what is required, right? So let's see if that's what's going to happen. You're starting to see things are starting to heat up as far as protesting is concerned. I don't know who exactly all these movements that are protesting, who the biggest organizers are now. Are they progressive, liberal? I don't know. But let's see. I mean, the fact that there isn't already a massive pushback from the left just shows how the American left wing, they're a joke. They're a fraud. These are the people that have been talking about fascism, white supremacy, all this stuff and all this noise and rhetoric about healthcare and inequality and all of that rhetoric. If they were legit, they would be on fire like you've never seen before. Already, from the minute that Donald Trump won, they should have been boom. I mean, like I said, they should have been fighting while Biden was in office, forcing him to do much more than he did. And since Kamala Harris, right-wing media would never admit this, Kamala Harris, with that short campaign, almost won. I know it's hard for people to understand that, not just because of right-wing propaganda, but it's just not understanding statistics, or I think it's also a critical thinking thing, right? And I understand because even for me, it's not necessarily completely intuitive. I do have to think about it and be like, okay, right? So I will give credit. This situation's a little bit unique. It's a little difficult to really process and realize because when you talk about you want the popular vote, right? You want the electoral college, right? And then you talk about the millions of votes more, right? It feels like, ooh, landslide. But you got to focus on the margin, which I think was like 1.5%. Tiny. To get within 1.5% of winning with such a short campaign. And yet, probably most of the country believes that it was a disaster. And she lost. I mean, Trump won by a landslide. Barely scraped through. He barely won. She came within 1.5% of potentially winning. And then you look at all the red all over the map. And it's like two separate concepts you have to be able to process. You have to process the difference between how many different areas geographically that she was able to win without a qualifier. Like, how did she win? That's the important detail that people don't think about. They just look at, she won so many different areas all over the map. It's like she just, the whole country. Like, this is a landslide. Tiny margins all over the place. Tiny margins all over the place. And then to really get the objective analysis, then you put all that aside, look at historically. Look at the historic context, right? If you feel like this was a big win, right, then objectively, you would want to compare it to historical wins. How does it stand up against wins in the past? And if you do that, you'll see historically tiny margin. If I'm not mistaken, I remember Joe Biden won by a much larger margin than Trump did this time, right? But bottom line is, you have to go back far in history to find someone winning by such a tiny margin. Regardless, the real time to protest and push is when the party in power is the one that has the power to push for the things that you want. So if you're a left-winger and you have problems with the Democrats, as I do, big problems with the Democrats, as I do, but recognize that the Republicans ain't doing nothing for you. Democrats will do a lot for you if you push them hard enough. Recognizing that reality, you would be loudest when the Democrats win. The minute a Democrat gets in office, hit the streets. We put you in office. Now it's time to deliver. And if you don't deliver, it's going to be a slaughter. We're going to vote you all out. Come midterm is when the bloodshed starts. Get to work. You fight the hardest when the door is open for immediate change. You don't stop fighting when that party is out of power, but the biggest fight should happen when the Democrats win. When Joe Biden won in 2020, that was the time for the left to light on fire. But instead they go to sleep, which is what I said back then. So actually, I should first validate my prediction, which already came true, because my prediction was before. I said once Biden wins, they're going to go to sleep. And that's what we saw, right? Biden out of office, Trump in office before. But just this. Biden wins, all of a sudden, give him a chance. He just got in office. He needs time. Give him time. You can't get everything you want. You can't get every single thing. You don't know how politics works. Wait, be patient. Then Biden skates through, doing a lot relative to historical precedent, but doing tiny in terms of what the American people needed, right? The left is nowhere to be seen. Trump comes back in the scene. He wins. And rather than the left going to war, they remain silent. Their influencers are online, still like downplaying Project 2020. We've seen this before. We've seen this before. It's the same stuff. The Democrats trying to get us all hyped up and liberals hysterical. Look, Trump did a peace deal with Gaza, see? Yeah. And, whatever. Look at these liberals and Hakeem Jeffries. You are a radical left person. You are a radical left movement. And your political opponents that you've been telling us about fascism and dictatorship and white supremacy. You've been telling us about this for so long. This guy gets in power. And you see him putting all these loyalists. You know what's coming. And they got this Project 25 agenda. And does the left come up with their left-wing agenda? Where's their Project 2020, whatever? Project 2020 right now. Where's the resistance? I thought you said fascism, white supremacy. Where are you at now? Where are you at? Where is the left? Have you seen her? Didn't you tell me that fascism was bad? Didn't you? I don't see you. Like, the little movements that I see, I don't know, man. I feel like it might be the liberals. I feel like the far left is still just, I don't know what they're doing. Does anybody know what happened? Did Trump have them all kidnapped? I mean, he's got control over these agencies. They could have had orders to abduct all the far left people and put them in Guantanamo Bay. That's why we're not hearing from them. Don't get me wrong. The far left, if they were active right now, for sure would be pushing for some craziness. Because the far left, they're extremists. The actual far left, not the far left that right-wingers talk about or Hakeem Jeffries. The actual far left, they're extremists, right? That's what far left means. That's what far right means. These are extremist groups with extreme ideas. To some degree, I think we need extreme measures in this country at this point, but not the crazy. So in theory, the far left should push hard and push for their radical ideas, and then the rest of the people on the left who are not far left should moderate and push back and tone. Again, like I said in my post before, we don't want to neuter the energy. We need aggressive. We need radical. But we need intelligence behind it, right? So it's not to say to neuter what the far left pushes for to something that's just like, crumbs. We need aggressive, but it's got to be smart. It's got to be tactical, right? And the far left, being extremists, they have radical ideology. They've been brainwashed with certain ideas, and they've been in a little bubble. So there's a lot of things that they're not aware of and they don't realize and they don't consider. So it's for the rest of the left to push back and be like, hey guys, and hopefully they hopefully they would outnumber the far left so that they would be able to perhaps be influenced by the best of the far left, right? But tone it down, be a little bit smarter. Unfortunately, they get restricted as well by their media. So the best of the far left ideas pushed by the progressives would also have blind spots because the unserious influencers that promote these ideas don't really think much about it. They're just content creators. But it's certainly better than what the far left would do unchecked, right? But the far left should be the loudest right now, unless they don't really believe that fascism is coming and white supremacy.